pretty good. Because I need to go back and find those scriptures over in Isaiah that it even indicate that capital punishment is going to be administered during that time period. If a person violates the law of God, that is a serious act, they would be put to death during that time period. But here's the second thing, the second reason we know that everybody's not going to be saved. The Bible said after the 1,000 years are up, and you know what, Satan's going to be released from the pit, that he's going to go forward to do what? To deceive the nations, to make them think they can fight against God. So that rebellious spirit is what? It's still there. Y'all follow what I'm saying? It is still there. And this is why I've been telling y'all that the devil is really not your greatest enemy. Your greatest enemy is you. Your greatest enemy is you. Because now look at this. Think about during the millennium period. Satan and fallen angels and demons are going to be locked up in the pit. Alright? But you still have some folk that's going to transgress God's law because they're going to have to be put to death during the millennium period. Would not have gotten saved. So that means that what? During the millennium period, they will not have Satan to tempt them. The stuff is on the inside. Y'all follow what I'm saying? Okay, any questions? Questions or comments? All right, so what happened? I'm just kind of reviewing a little bit. We're going to go and finish this chapter. But what happened? The sun-clothed woman, Israel, she's pregnant, she's travailing, she's in pain. She's getting ready to deliver. The baby's going to be the man-child, right? Okay, the great-grand dragon is waiting on her to deliver because he wants to devour the man-child. Satan is going to be, throughout the first half of the tribulation, he's going to do all, or well, let me put it this way, he's going to have a great desire to kill the 144,000 Jews. Now keep in mind, these Jews have gotten saved. They accepted Jesus. And they would be the ones who primarily are going to do what we are doing now. See, the gospel will continue to be preached. It's just that you won't have the church here to do it any longer. The church age ends with the rapture. The 144,000 will get saved after the rapture of the church. And incidentally, I was reading something that Jimmy Swaggart said that I had not thought about a whole lot. Now, he said this: we really don't know how long of a gap is going to be between the rapture and the beginning of the tribulation period. We have commonly been taught that the rapture take place, and immediately after the rapture, the tribulation comes. The Bible doesn't say that. If you study carefully the Bible, now I'm not saying that there will be a delay, but here's the thing. There is nothing in the scripture to indicate one way or the other. There could be a gap of years that actually takes place between the rapture of the church and the beginning of the tribulation. We don't know when the tribulation is going to begin, because the Bible is not precise, is what I'm trying to tell you. So I thought that was a pretty good point he made, because that if there are a number of years between these two events, that would probably help to explain how that temple is going to be rebuilt. You know, the temple in Israel, in Jerusalem. Because now, that temple is not going to be built in one day. Probably won't be built in 1 year. It's going to take some time to build that temple. And again, you know, I'm not saying that the tribulation, because see, some people wonder, will the temple be built? Because the scripture cited on this too. Will the temple be built before the rapture of the church? We don't know. Could be built before the rapture of the church. Alright? But if it's built after the rapture of the church, Then the question comes in, how long is it going to take to build that temple? And is there a gap? I'm not confused about it. Is there a gap between the rapture and the tribulation period? The scripture is silent. There are some things that God has not given us answers. And y'all follow what I'm saying? And so when I read that, I said, I hadn't thought about it quite like that. That's a very interesting point. Because commonly we said tribulation will come right after the rapture. Well, we've said that, but we really don't have proof of that in scripture. We don't know. All right, anybody got any comments? So the Antichrist, along with Satan, the great red dragon, he wants to do all he can to destroy the 144,000, but he can't. Now we get close to it because remember, we already studied earlier that there is a seal on the 144,000 where he cannot touch them. When their mission is over, which is going to be what? At the midpoint of the tribulation period, God's going to what? Take them away. That's what the man-child that's being snatched up away from the dragon, that's what that symbolizes. Alright? Now, look at the bottom of that first page that is on chapter 12. Let's go back to that and look at a few things here. It said, because of Satan's anger, the Antichrist, after breaking the treaty with Israel, would try to completely destroy the Jews. So during this same period, when 144,000 were taken away, we also know that in this chapter, what about the dragon himself? He's going to be what? He's going to be cast into the earth. Look at verse, I think you already have your Bibles open. Revelation 12 and 7. The Bible said, and there was war where? War in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great red dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So now he's going to be thrown into the earth, where he no longer has access into the heavens. He no longer will be able to go to the third heaven to have a conversation with God as he does now. Alright? Now, when that happens, skip down to verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and half a time from the face of the serpent. That when it says time and times and half a time is the same as 3.5 years. It's talking about the last part of the tribulation period. If you go back to the notes, that second sentence in that bottom paragraph says, Israel will flee into the wilderness, eventually going to Edom and Moab, which is modern day Jordan and Arabia. It is there that these Arab nations would take care and feed the Jews for 1,260 days, which is the same as 3.5 years. The Jewish, now you have to use the Jewish calendar to get those days, because the Jewish calendar is only 360 days. You know, our calendar is what? What is our calendar? How long? 365 and 1/4 of a day. 365 and 1/4. But their calendar consists of 30 days per month. So when you're dealing with the Bible in terms of time, you have to go by the Jewish calendar, particularly here because you're dealing with the Jewish people. Now, what are we looking at here? Let's see, can we get a better picture? Let's look at what Jesus said at the same time point. Go to St. Matthew chapter 24. And again, now look, I've been doing all the talking, but I want you, if you have a question, please ask your question. Don't think, well, my question don't mean anything. 9 times out of 10, you got a question, somebody got that same question in mind. So please ask the question. If you, all right. St. Matthew 24 and 15. Now Jesus speaking, he said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, he says, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Verse 16, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And warn to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days be short, there should be no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be short. Now, the saints used to teach, particularly in our church, because we didn't have an understanding of some things here. We said that was the rapture. That's what we were saying. But this is not the rapture. The key verse is really the first verse, verse 15. And another key verse that will let you know is verse 21. For then shall be what? Great tribulation. So Jesus was saying, now, when you go back and look at verse 15 about the abomination of desolation, this is when the Antichrist is going to break the peace treaty with Israel. All right? And when he breaks that peace treaty, then he's going to go into the temple that's got to be built again. And he's going to desecrate the temple. In other words, he's going to make it unclean according to the Mosaic law, the law of Moses. Because the Jewish folks are planning to build that temple. And they want to use all of what is written in the law of Moses, all the temple rituals and sacrifices and so forth. And some people say that what he might do, he might take a pig into the temple. Because you know the pig is an unclean animal according to the law of Moses. And if he does that, the temple is going to be desecrated. It becomes unclean. But that's not all he's going to do. He's going to do some other things. And at the same time, his forces will go into Jerusalem, and you're going to have perhaps over 1 million folks that's going to get killed on that day. That's why Jesus was saying, if you're in the field, don't you go back to the house to get stuff. If you're on the top of the house, don't try to go down there and gather things, but you need to get out as soon as possible. You need to be getting out of the city. You need to be trying to get to the mountains. And, woe to them that give suck, that those women that have little children, those that are pregnant, pray that your flight don't be in the winter, because the winter is going to be more difficult, or on the Sabbath day, because if they hold on to the law, you're going to have some people that's going to have some problems running more than a mile, because the Jews say if you go more than a mile, then you have violated the Sabbath day that considered to be work. All right? Come on, questions. Comments. Am I making any sense here? Nobody got any questions here? I may have to ask some questions in a few minutes though. In a few minutes maybe. Now, where are they going to, okay, here's the question. Where did I tell you that Israel's going to flee to? Where are they going? To where? To, all right, Petra. But we just said a minute ago, what countries did oh, she's saying something else over there. What country did I just tell you in the writing here? Speak of Moab and Edom. All right, where did we get that from? Let's turn to Isaiah 16. Go to Isaiah 16, everybody. This is when you have to see, Revelation does not give you the complete picture. You have to go to the Old Testament to fill in some of the gaps. Isaiah chapter 16 and verse 1. Are you there yet? All right. Send ye the lamb to the ruler of the land from Selah to the wilderness unto the mount of the daughter of Zion. Now, this, let me explain a few things here. And of course, you can go back hoping and read all this again at a later time to get a better understanding. But when you look at Selah, S-E-L-A, that's another name for Petra, I believe. Petra was in that day in Moab. Moab today is the country of Jordan. Jordan is east of Israel. You cross the Jordan River, and you're basically in the country of Jordan. All right? Let me read on a little bit further. For it shall be that as a wandering bird cast out of the nest, so the daughters of Moab shall be at the fords of Arnon. Now, that wandering bird is Israel, symbolizing Israel. Take counsel, execute judgment, make thy shadow as the night in the dust of the noonday. Hide, here's the key thing. What does it say? Hide who? The outcast. All right? Beware, not him that wandereth. Beware is an obsolete word for betray. Let my outcast dwell with thee, Moab. Be thou a coveret. Coveret will be a protection to them from the face of the spoiler. The spoiler is Antichrist. For the extortioner is at end, the spoiler ceases, the oppressors are consumed out of the land. And in mercy shall the throne be established, and he shall sit upon it in truth in the tabernacle of David, judging and seeking judgment and hastening righteousness. That's really speaking of what's going to take place after the tribulation. Okay, Isaiah also talks about this in the same book. Go to Isaiah chapter 63. Go to Isaiah 63. You'll read a couple of verses here. All right, Isaiah 63, verse 1. The question is that who is this that cometh from Edom? Because remember I told you that when they run, they're going to go to where? Moab and Edom. So here it gives you, the last scripture talked about Moab, but here it talks about Edom. Moab and Edom were side by side on the ancient map. Say, who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? That is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thy apparel, and thy garments like him that treaded in the wine fat? So who you think Isaiah is speaking of here? So who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? And Bozrah was one of the cities that was actually in Edom and Moab. And then it said dyed garment in verse 1, but in verse 2, it tells you the color. The color is what? It's red. Red represents blood. Yes, and the person that Isaiah is speaking of is Jesus. Because look at verse 3. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people that there was none with me, for I will tread them in my anger, and trample them in my fury, and their blood should be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. For that day of vengeance is mine. So this is the day of vengeance. And the year of my Redeemer is come. And I looked, and there was none to help. And I wondered that there was none to hold. Therefore my own arm brought salvation to me, and my fury, it upheld me. Now verse 5 says, and I looked, and there was none to help. That's speaking of the fact that when Israel runs, trying to get away from the Antichrist, say that, seemed like there was what? No help. Alright? Now when we talk about when I was asked the question, who is he that cometh from Edom? This is really talking about the end of the tribulation. Because what's going to end the tribulation? The second coming of Jesus. In the second coming, he's coming all the way to the earth. That'll be during the time of the Battle of Armageddon. Y'all follow? And when he comes down in that Battle of Armageddon, the book of Revelation, we get to later on, some of the last chapter talk about the blood from the men that are going to be destroyed. There'll be so much blood, so it will come to the bridle of a horse. Now think about a horse that, head way up here. A tall horse. The bridle around the mouth. That means that there'll be a river of blood from the number of folks that's going to be killed from the Antichrist forces. Because when Jesus comes back from heaven, he's coming back on a white horse. He's coming with the armies of heaven. All right? Who's going to be in that army? Anybody know? All right? She said she's going to be in that army. And you're correct. The angels, all right, host of heaven, which include the redeemed saints. We're going to come back on white horses too. Out of heaven, in that army. I remember when I taught this some years ago. I think the first time I taught this was over 15 years ago here. Deacon Holly was here. And your hub. He asked, well, Pastor, are we going to come back and fight? He started being a little concerned about would he get hurt? Something happened. I said, no, sir, you cannot be hurt then because you would have a redeemed, a glorified body. Because you would have gone from mortality to immortality. And said, as long as you're on Jesus' side, you ain't worried about being hurt. Because he knows we'll be coming back with the Lord Jesus. He's the one that's going to be doing the basic fighting. Anyway. Alright? But the blood here, the dyed garment, is just simplifying all that blood from the destruction of the Antichrist forces. That you have that blood everywhere. Now, let's see, can we kind of put this all together? Because really, as I told you, it's not really in chronological order, because really what I've done, I've gone from the middle of the tribulation, which is what the Great Tribulation, all the way to the end, if you really look at it. The Lord Jesus, no, go back to the big one. The Antichrist is going to make a treaty for how long? How long is this treaty supposed to be with Israel? 7 years, which corresponds to Daniel's 7th week, which we know is 7 years. Alright? He's going to make a treaty. And in the middle of the week, that's what Daniel said, which would be 3.5 years, he's going to break the treaty. And that's when he's going to go after the Jews to wipe them out, take over the temple. Here's something that's interesting. I spoke about this before. Muslims believe, and this is in their book, the Quran. The Quran teaches them that if your enemy has the upper hand on you, you make a treaty with them. Make them think everything is okay. So that you have time to gain the momentum, get your strength. And say, you make the treaty, but break it. But break the treaty. They say make the treaty at least for 7 to 10 years. But once you get the momentum, break the treaty. So they say it's okay to lie to you. So some people believe the Antichrist will be Muslim. Might. And there's a good chance he will be. Alright? However, it is very interesting that these Muslim countries, Moab and Edom, that's the ancient name back in biblical time, especially the Old Testament. It is interesting that these Muslim countries, which now we know is going to be Jordan, Saudi Arabia, maybe another, they're actually going to decide to go against the Antichrist. Don't y'all think that's kind of interesting? See, let me tell you something. Even though the Muslim folks are mixed up because they say, God is Allah, and I'm telling you, Allah is not the same as the God of heaven. It's not the same. All right? Even though they worship Allah, one thing they do say is that you can't have any other God. Second thing, when the Antichrist comes and they find out that he really wants the world to worship him, they're going to have a problem with it too, because they call that idolatry, just like we as the saints of God do. Y'all follow what I'm saying? So the Muslim folk will have some problem with the Antichrist, you know, after they find out who he really is. Just like the Jewish folk, the Jewish people are going to accept him first, because they think he's a good man. And they're going to find out he's not what he said. Because see, the Antichrist, let me say this, even if he used the Muslim name, even if he is Muslim, the Antichrist's ultimate goal is to get the world to worship him. And if he's Muslim starting off, he cannot continue to follow Muslim principles and have what the world to worship him. So see, the Muslim folks don't have a problem with him. One of the other Muslim countries we know is not going to follow him is Egypt. Because there's several scriptures, even in the millennium period, that talks about Egypt. Now you got to keep this in mind now. The scripture says in Psalm 9:17, the wicked shall be turned into hell, and what? And all nations that forget God. Some entire nations have got to go to hell. And I think that scripture is pointing toward this time period. Because, now check this out. Right after the tribulation period, before we go into the millennium period, there's going to be a judgment of nations. If I remember correctly, that's St. Matthew 25. You remember when Jesus talked about the sheep and the goat? The sheep would go to his right hand, the goats would go to his left hand. And the old saints was teaching that they was talking about saints and sinners. Was not talking about saints and sinners. It's talking about a judgment of nations. Those goat nations are the nations that's going to side up with the Antichrist. Alright? The sheep nations, not that they was really so much righteous or saved, they would be the nations that will not follow the Antichrist. So it would be the sheep nations. The reason we don't have to have a judgment, it would be the sheep nations that would go into the millennium period. But those nations that side up with the Antichrist and take the mark of the beast, because if you take the mark of the beast, all hope is lost. You cannot get saved once you take the mark of the beast. You got to remember now, that's going to be in the tribulation period. See, we live in the church age. This is a time of grace now. You know, the different dispensations. But the time of grace is going, in terms of the church age, is going to end. All right. Questions? Who was Allah? Allah, if you go and study, is a moon god that loves blood. Now, the Muslims will say that Muhammad is the one that led them to the correct teaching. But Muhammad and those that were with him, they just simply adopted some pagan ideas that were already there. Already. No, it's pagan god. Idol god that actually was around even before Muhammad started that particular religion. But since then, they try to make it appear that Allah is the God of the Christians and the Jews, and he's not. You know, because what the Muslim faith has done, and first of all, Muhammad was illiterate. He could not read and write. But what he says happened to him. Yes, a man who write all this stuff down, and that's where the Quran came from. They got another book called the Hadith, and then there's another book that's supposed to help interpret the Quran. And so they got the Quran, and it has scriptures and verses like the Bible does. The Muslim folks say that the Bible has truth. They'll tell you that. But they say that the Bible has been perverted, or that it has some incorrect statements, because they say Moses was a good man. They esteemed him highly. David. They even say Jesus was a good man, but he was not the Son of God. They say he's just a prophet. Because they esteem Muhammad as being greater than Jesus. So they're all, the devil got them all thrown off mixed up. Right.
Because I got family members believe in Allah. They don't believe in God. One of my uncles asked me, he said, why, I think I had asked you before, why would Jesus need a son to come down here and die for y'all sin? Though he said, not me saying it, for y'all sin, and God could have came down and did it for himself. I know he's confused and he thought.
Yeah, he's confused.
And I don't trust him. Every time he say anything, he said, if Allah will.
Yeah, and more likely your kin people probably are part of what's called the Black Muslims. But you got about 3 or 4 different Muslim groups, just like in Christianity, you got different denominations. You got different denominations among the Muslims as well. Now, for black people in America, they usually follow Farrakhan. They're separate from the main group of Muslims from the Middle East, but they share the same philosophy and so forth. All right, other questions? Yes. I don't know what we can say exactly that's when tribulation is going to start. All that we do know, the scriptures tell us in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is that he won't be revealed until after the rapture of the church. So we don't know what that means. It's going to be right at the beginning or not. We really don't know. He could be revealed before then. That is, if somebody who's left behind knows something about the scripture, they might say, oh, that's the Antichrist there, because the fact that what's going to happen, the Antichrist is going to rise up all of a sudden as a charismatic leader, going to have great speaking abilities. All right, got the answer to the world's problems, and a lot of things he say are probably going to make sense. That is to the natural man. Okay. See now, what do you think going on now? What do you think? What are people saying right now? And this is an idea that's actually going to lead into the Antichrist taking over. What are our world leaders really talking about? They're talking about trying to bring everybody together and have what? One world government. But if you have a one world government, the only way to make that really work, you got to have one world religion. You can't have all these different religions because religious ideas cause war. And so they feel like right now we can merge everybody together. Say, but the top one we know we're not going to get are Christians. Because we teach one way, one God. Of course, they're going to have a problem with the Muslims. They're going to have a problem with the Jews because Jews do believe in the same God. They just don't accept Jesus. So, but what I'm simply saying, these folks are coming trying to bring the world together. Now, look, to a lot of folks, it sounds good because we bring the whole world together. We're going to stop all the wars. We're going to figure out how to help those that are poor. So we're going to stop world hunger. All these troubles, but they're promising. But I want y'all to look at something. I want y'all to look at something very carefully. In terms of politics, I don't mean, let me put it this way. As pastor, I don't tell people who to vote for. Okay? That has to be your decision. I don't mean to get in the pulpit and preach politics. That's not really my job. But there are some things I think we're going to look at. One thing I've been telling y'all, do not vote blindly for the Democrats. Do not vote blindly for the Democrat. All right? So I'm a history teacher. And I can go through a whole history lesson about these political parties. Because there's some issues on both sides. There's a lot of racism on both sides. There's a whole lot of racism in the Democrat Party. A whole lot. All right? Now, and then I want you to look at something too. I've been telling y'all that what President Trump has said, all that he said is not completely wrong. I don't agree with a lot of his tactics. But I am going to say this. Something has to be done about the border. Now, I don't agree with what has transpired here in Mississippi. They went around of all these folks separating the parents from the children. I think that something else could have been done, you know, a different method. But reason I say you got to look at what he's saying about that border. Now, the Republicans are saying that the Democrats want an open border. If you have an open border, that means anybody from anywhere in the world can come into your country. That would be a mixing of nationalities. If there's a mixing of nationality, that's one of the things that would help bring on the ideal of a one-world government. See, because in order to have one-world government, you got to break the boundaries. You got to break them down. Because you won't have what? One-world government. One rule. Am I making any sense with this? So see, you have to look at all this now. You got to look at what these people are saying. And so Democrats are talking about, you know, basically free health care. They say they want to pay everybody's college loan and all. Y'all better listen to these folks. Ain't nowhere in the world they're gonna pay off millions and billions of dollars worth of debt unless they raise your taxes and raise them significantly. But they might want to raise them significantly so that you will have less money. If you got less money, then guess what you have to do? You have to live and depend more on the government. And if you have to live and depend more on the government, they give them more control over your life. All of that helps to set up what? Try to bring this one world government in. See, socialism, which some of the Democrats say they are, socialism is anti-God. Because if you allow socialism come in, then you give the government control. If the government gets control, then the government going to start telling the church. They're already trying to tell them what to do. But you let socialism come in, they definitely going to tell the church what to do. That's what happened to Russia. Russia had churches everywhere. Socialism. Now, because they call it communism. There, but communism is a step higher than socialism. It's all the same. But once that took place in Russia, they wiped the churches out in Russia. And it's been hard ever since to get the church going again. They got a few going there now. Communism, socialism, they related. China, you have to have church underground, secretive, because the government is anti-God. If we let socialism come into this country, then one of the first places going to attack is the church. They're already trying to do it. They're already trying to do it. See, folks didn't know when Hillary Clinton was running, and you know, you got evil against evil. Clinton against Trump. Both of them bad. But Hillary Clinton said that the church might well go on and accept some things. Say, because if they don't, we're going to pay them. Now, she said that. I heard her say that. I to this day believe God let Trump win because of her wicked heart. That don't mean Trump right, because he's wicked too. The Bible talks about the fact that he's the one that set up king. He set one up and take another one down. That's what the Bible says. It looks like I'm not going to get to the 13th chapter. I might introduce it tonight. Because I need you to go to one more verse right quick. Go to Daniel 11 and 44. We need to look at that scripture. Let me see, that's what I want. Yeah, we're going to start with verse 41. Are y'all there yet? Daniel 11 and 41. Now, you remember, I was talking about the Antichrist, and after the man-child's been snatched away, he's going to do what? He's going to go after Israel. Israel, as Isaiah chapter 63 said, take on the wings of that bird. Scripture called outcast. They're going to go to where? To Moab and Edom. One particular city will be Petra. But let's find out what's going on. Verse 41 says, he shall enter also into the glorious land. Glorious land is Israel. This is at the midpoint the 3.5 years when he breaks the treaty. He shall enter also in the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. So see, he's going to be fighting a lot of wars. All right, even before that point. But these shall escape out of his hand. Now this is talking about Israel. Even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. So these nations apparently are not going to side up with him. Shall what? He shall do what? They shall escape out of his hand. That's why Israel going to run to them. Verse 42, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. So he's going to fight Egypt. He's going to gain control of Egypt. But he shall have power over the treasure of gold and of silver and of all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. But now look at verse 44. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly make away men. Now the theologians are saying that what's going to happen when he comes in there and he takes over the temple and he's going to seek to destroy the Jew, and millions of them are going to be killed, and it seems like he's going to overcome them as he's chasing them in the wilderness. Tidings means he's getting news from the east and from the north. And theologians said that what that is he's going to get news that there are going to be some more armies that are going to be coming his direction to fight him. So guess what he's going to have to do? He's going to have to leave from chasing the Jews to go back north and east, back probably over into Europe and Asia, and meet these armies and start fighting. And it's going to take him almost 3.5 years to kind of get things under control like he wants, so that he can take most of his forces and come back after the Jews. And this time, now I'm going to completely wipe them out. And that's when the Lord Jesus is going to show up to put a stop to him.
So these verses are talking about the Antichrist.
That's right. It's talking about the Antichrist. Now, I have to teach Daniel 11 another time. There's a whole lot in there, a lot of symbols. Some things that happened in the 11th chapter is talking about times that were closer to Daniel's day that represent what's going to happen. So there's a lot of stuff in there that have to be a whole different lesson. But I'm just giving that portion to show you what's going to draw his attention away momentarily. So, what's going to happen to the United States? What's going to happen to you? Because y'all know right now, we don't want nobody to outdo us. We even tell other countries what you can and cannot do. We tell that Rocket Man he can't have me a nuclear bomb. No, I don't believe that now. But now, I keep praying for peace. Keep praying for peace because what probably happened if he go too far, Trump had already said we're going to get him. And we got enough stuff to take him out of there. We do. But they're being cautious. We tell you why they're being cautious with Kim Jong-un. Why they being cautious of him? You know, he's very close. Well, you know, he's North Korea, and the bottom of the peninsula is South Korea. And then across this was the Sea of Japan, still China, one of them. They're not far from Japan. Now check this out. Japan has the world's second or third strongest economy. South Korea is a very powerful economy. Now, if you destroy one of those countries, you will wreck the economy of the whole world. It will bring a lot of economic woes to the United States if he destroys either one of those countries. So, you see, you cannot let him, in their mind, what? Shoot a nuclear bomb over there to Japan or South Korea, because it will destroy the world's economy, cause you to go into a recession or perhaps a depression. That's why they're watching him and they, you know, kind of walking lightly with him, because he's crazy. And see, whereas he might have, they think, the capability of shooting a bomb to the west coast of the United States, they know he probably pretty much can hit Japan or South Korea. He try to shoot one at us, we're going to see him on the radar and try to shoot it at the sky, and we're going to send some fire back at it. So they ain't really worried about him hitting us so much, but it's one of those countries. Or the other will be the Philippine Islands or Guam, because we got some big bases, you know, in those places. But all of this is dealing with the end time, y'all. All this dealing with the end time. Any other questions? I didn't get to chapter 13, so I guess I keep my notes up here. I didn't pass them. I just say it because I give to y'all now. Y'all might not bring them down. But chapter 13 deals with the rise of the Antichrist. See, again, the book of Revelation is not written in chronological order. But this chapter, let's look at the very first verse. We have to get deep in it because time is up now, really. But in Revelation 13:1 it says, and I stood, this is talking about John, upon the sand of the sea. The sea there is talking about people. And saw a beast rise up out of the sea. So he saw this beast coming up out of the sea. That would be people, y'all. Having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns. And upon his head the name of blasphemy. That's speaking about the rise of the Antichrist, the beast. Now, why is he described this way? Well, it's talking about a man, but it's also talking about his kingdom. How many heads does he have? Look at scripture again. How many heads he has? He has 7. What do those heads represent? Represents Egypt, Assyria. Let's see if I can get Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece or Grecian Empire, and the 6th one is the Roman Empire. The 7th head represents the empire that the Antichrist is going to take over. Those are 7 empires that have persecuted Israel in the past, and the 7th one is the one to come. But the land is overlapping. The same area, the Middle East, Northern Africa. That's why I need to have a map now. I need to have a screen up there. And Southern Europe. I'm going to try to do better. I got to learn how to really operate that thing. I got to learn how, so I can put the map and you see it better. I'm a history teacher, so I visualize all these maps in my head like that. But it'd be easier for you to see if I had a map. Now, but all those kingdoms, Egypt covered a pretty good portion, but not all. Assyria was bigger. Then Babylon was bigger. Each one got bigger, basically. Y'all follow what I'm saying? But in the end, the same land, the Antichrist is going to do what? He's going to have control. Now, why are there 10 horns? The 10 horns represent the 10 kingdoms. They're going to have 10 kingdoms that's going to be in that same land area. And that's what, we talked about the fact over in Daniel. Daniel talked about a little horn came up, plucked up 3. 3 of the horn. That means he's going to defeat 3 of the kingdoms. The other 6 going to give their power to him, and he's going to take charge. I can go on and on. But let's talk about the Antichrist kingdom. I got a lot more got to talk about in that 13th chapter that we can't really get into now. Y'all gonna read this and study it? The 10 crowns are the crowns of those 10 kings. The 10 kings are represented by those 10 horns. All right. Did y'all get anything out of it?